Welcome to today's episode of Create Your Fate. Before I begin, out of respect for this extremely sensitive topic, I want to cautiously mention some trigger warnings that we will be talking about. Miscarriage, pregnancy loss, and infant loss. If this episode is not for you, I am sending you all the love and the light. Today's guest is Jamilah Robinson, one of the founders of Missing Pieces support group located right here in Houston, Texas. Missing Pieces serves the community of people who have experienced pregnancy loss, and it's organized by a group of women who have all experienced pregnancy losses ranging from first-term miscarriages to stillbirths. It is their mission to bring awareness to pregnancy loss and to offer support to grieving families, and October is Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Month. On today's show, Jamilah shares about her own miscarriages and the trauma and the grief that followed, along with her healing journey. She shares her story of what helped her through her experience, how to show up for someone who is going through this experience, and how awareness can break down the taboo around this unfortunately very common experience. Hi, Jamilah. Thank you so much for coming to join us on Create Your Fate podcast. I have been looking forward to this episode. We've been talking about it for a long time. So welcome to my show. Thanks for being on.
You. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for the invite.
Oh my God, of course.
Sharing with your audience.
Yes, you have such a strong and inspiring story and such a unique and beautiful thing to offer people. And I thought, what better way to share this, especially with October being Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Month, as you informed me when we were talking about this. So, I've introduced Missing Pieces. So just give us a little bit of background on it, when it started, why you wanted to start it.
Yes. And again, thank you for inviting me to come during this month. The timing is spot on, and it's very relevant to be talking about pregnancy loss. So back in 2018, I experienced 2 miscarriages. The first was physically traumatic, and the second one was more of an emotional something that I couldn't get myself out of without seeking help. Like I was depressed. I didn't know how to express my feelings. And then when I did find words, they fell on the wrong ears. And so, there wasn't a lot of support there. Right. Mm. And, between my first and second miscarriages, I reached out to a friend who I knew who had experienced pregnancy loss. And I said, hey, I want to do something to help this new community that we found ourselves in, because this is something that's it's not talked about, and I didn't know anybody else to talk to but her, because I knew she'd gone through it, and she would have a more empathetic ear. And so we had a few planning sessions, and through those talks, I came across some information that she was given at the hospital. My friend Jessica, who is now also a board member, experienced a stillbirth. So she was much further along in the pregnancy, and they do a few different things. Like you have to bury the child, and they give you all of these additional resources. Anyways, one of the resources she got was a list of mental health support. And you would have thought that we were back in the 80s or 90s with the way this list was presented, right? It was just typed out. It was stapled. And, it looked like they typed it on a typewriter, right? But most of the information was also outdated. So, I'm going through this list, calling, trying to get an answer. I do finally land on a resource that had a free 7-week pregnancy loss support group.
Mm.
said, okay, well, let me go check this out for the sake of research, right? So we can figure out what it is we want to do. So I sign up and I attend that session, and it is the best thing that could have happened to my life. I was able to sit in the room with other women who had recently gone through the same experience that I had. Different phases of pregnancy loss. Some were early term miscarriages, some 6 or 7 months in losing the pregnancy, others, um, you know, reaching almost the due date and then having to deliver a stillborn. Um, but there was this common thread of going through the unexpected, and then dealing with the life after loss, which, because nobody talks about it, you don't really know what to do.
Yeah.
Right. So, talking through that, navigating our feelings and emotions, going through those 7 weeks together, it naturally formed a bond amongst us, right? And we continue to meet beyond the support group, at least once a month. 3 of those ladies are some of my dearest friends. We've had our life after loss experience and journey together. Several pregnancies later, and all these additional children around now. It's just been a great thing.
Mm.
But after we'd finished that support group and had continued to meet up, the desire for me to build something was just, it was here now. It was at a 10, and I was like, look, guys, I'm gonna do a thing. Do you want to be a part of the thing? And 3 of the ladies answered the call, and so we started navigating through how to form a nonprofit, and then talking through the things that we wanted to offer. The first mutual idea that we had was a care package offering, because of this experience that some of us who had gone through miscarriages, we don't get a lot from the hospital or wherever you experience the loss, other than please return for your DNC, which is where they kind of remove the remains, and they send you on your merry way, right? So we all sought to put something in that person's hands that, one, acknowledges the loss, lets them know that we empathize with them, and gets them thinking about the grief support that they're going to need to navigate their feelings after this experience, because it's a traumatic experience. Nobody plans on losing their baby before having it, right? So then you have to process those emotions, and the physical things that come with delivering a baby that you're not going to get to watch grow up. It's just can we cuss on this podcast?
Yes, you can say anything.
It's a mind fuck. It's a mind fuck, and it will really mess with you if you don't deal with those emotions.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I cannot even imagine. I consider myself very lucky that I'm seemingly one of the very few women who's not experienced miscarriage, because it's very common. But again, because I feel like people are just kind of starting to talk about it, which is why I loved there's an entire month dedicated to the awareness, and I loved your nonprofit because it serves so many. But if nobody talks about it, then nobody even knows that it's very common.
Right.
Why do you think
so one of those statistics about the commonality: 1 in 4 pregnancies end in miscarriage.
Wow. Okay. I remember you had told me that, and I couldn't remember the exact stat, but 1 in 4.
Yeah. Wow. It's 25% of pregnancies end in miscarriage. So it literally is like a miracle to be born.
Right.
So
not just to get pregnant, but to
see the whole process through.
Yeah.
And that's something that most of us grow up not knowing. We've only been exposed to the happy path because there's a lot of people not talking about it. Thankfully, celebrities are starting to speak up about their experience with pregnancy loss, because I think that has just opened up the transparency platforms. But we as America have to do better.
Yeah.
with talking about it so that people don't feel isolated and alone.
Right. So, and that's what I was going to ask with before you shared that 1 in 4. That's wild. With the stat being 1 in 4, why do you think it is so taboo of a topic that, does not get discussed freely?
That's a great question. Um, Depending on how people, communicate or express themselves in general has something to do with that,
Mhm.
right? Because, you know, as an introvert, it's hard to talk about something in general and something so personal and emotional.
Mhm.
You don't want to get your heart trampled on if you share this information with the wrong person, right? Because you're
Right.
already in a broken place.
Right.
So you start off being selective and intentional even when you talk about it. And then if you don't get the reception or the feedback or the empathy or the support that you're looking for, that just makes you even more apprehensive
Mhm.
about telling the next person.
Right. Even more isolated because clearly, the person doesn't understand, and
Mm-hmm.
um it could, I'm sure, has the potential to make you feel even worse, right?
Yeah,
So let's
absolutely.
just dive into that, because I think that's a very big topic. As somebody who has not experienced that trauma, and
Mm-hmm.
that grief, I know I do not want to say anything that could trigger something, or make somebody feel worse about an already extremely vulnerable and emotional experience that happened to them. So,
Right.
what what are some things that for listeners who haven't necessarily experienced them themselves, but know somebody who has gone through this, or you know might deal with this in the future? What are some things that we should not say that you hear often that, people, and again, I'm sure they come with good intentions,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I've heard terrible things, that people have said trying to console, and it's like, just
Absolutely.
stop talking, so
Please stop talking.
what are some of
Yes.
these things?
Some of the things are, oh, you're young. You're young enough to try again. Like, this won't be your only time to get pregnant. Or, oh,
Hmm.
you can have another baby. Not knowing that, well, I really wanted this one. This is the
Right.
baby that I wanted. And this is going to stick with me forever.
Yeah.
It's also going to make me afraid to try to conceive again. It's also
Mm-hmm.
going to make me afraid that, my pregnancy will end in a loss again.
Hmm.
So, that type of encouragement is unwanted. Um, when are you expecting or when are you going to have a baby is, that's that's a touchy topic for women
Yeah.
in general. But
Right.
like for somebody that has recently gone through a loss, like you didn't even have a clue that they were pregnant,
Yeah.
it hurts. It hurts really, really bad.
Yeah. I think it's probably a general safe assumption just to say, hey, let the person, come to you and share news,
Yes.
right? Rather
Yes.
than prying, because, yeah, you have no
Hmm.
idea someone could have experienced, you know, 2 back-to-back miscarriages, and they've been trying for over a year. So when someone says, hey,
Right.
when are you going to finally start having kids? Again, probably not malintended,
It's a trigger for
but it's
sure.
a
It's a
trigger.
trigger.
Hmm.
Absolutely. And,
Hmm.
for that person that isn't used to sharing or, isn't open to sharing with you, it's going to, like you said, bring them further into that isolation hole
Hmm. Hmm.
and make it harder for them to get the help. So,
Yeah.
words matter. Please watch your words.
Yeah. Maybe just, let people come to you with information. And
Right.
when they do, I think a lot of times people feel like they have to fix it or make them feel better. And
They
so they say
do.
something completely, you know, oh, well, it's not that bad. You can try again.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's, stop trying to fix things. Maybe just be a listening ear and say, I'm
Yes.
so sorry.
That's exactly what I was about to say, Meg. Just being there
Hmm.
is like the biggest source of comfort in this situation.
Hmm.
If you come over and, sit on the couch with that person, watch the TV they're watching. If they ask you to fix something, okay, get up and do it. Just
Hmm.
being there for that physical, hey, I see you trying to support me
Yeah.
type of situation is the best thing you can do.
Yeah.
Say less and, do more by just being there.
Yeah. That's, I think, a really helpful tip
Sure.
for people. And again, I mean, a lot of people just don't know.
Right.
So
With
if,
grief in general, like people say the
yeah.
wrong things.
Oh, yeah.
So, the presence piece really helps though.
Hmm. Hmm. So, you touched on a point earlier about having a miscarriage and being filled with fear for the next pregnancy.
Mm-hmm.
What was your experience like? Because I know you have, tell me your
Yeah, my childhood
yeah, I was like
timeline.
your childhood history, of what was each experience like? Because I'm
Right.
like, I know you have a couple kids, and
I do. I have
share about your
two.
experience there.
Yes. So I have a 9-year-old son, and then my rainbow baby, which is the baby after the miscarriages, is
Mhm.
now 3. Time
Mhm.
flies by so fast.
Yeah.
Anyways, in 2018, my son was, what, what was that, 5 years ago, 6 years ago? He was 4 or 5.
Mhm.
Anyways, we gotten pregnant. I lost the baby 10 weeks later. Um, a little bit sad, disappointed, trying to figure out what the heck just happened, right? But I put my head down, I went back to work and kept doing things.
Mhm.
And then maybe 6 weeks later, we were pregnant again.
Mhm.
And this time around, I was told that I was a little bit further along. And so, once you hit the safe, quote unquote, safe period of time, we decided to share. So, we told people.
Mhm.
And then, I noticed spotting, and then the miscarriage happened again. And then we had to untell the people. And that, I think it just intensified the situation. But, wasn't as afraid as the third time I got pregnant after the 2 miscarriages. But yeah, the third time around, I was definitely more. I'm not going to tell you that I'm pregnant unless you ask me about it, right?
Mhm.
I wasn't interested in sharing that type of news. Um, it's like walking around on eggshells at this point because, okay, this first one wasn't a fluke. This has happened again.
Mhm.
It could definitely happen again. People asked me if I wanted baby showers. There were people that wanted to give me clothes because the sex of this baby was different than my son.
Mhm.
And I just wasn't up for receiving anything. We didn't even decorate a room for my rainbow baby until maybe 3 or 4 weeks out. And that was because my husband was like, okay, she can't come to an empty home. It's going to be
You have to do
crazy.
something.
Right. You have to do something. So we
Yeah.
did something. But even with this one, I up into the day of delivery, and I had scheduled a C-section because, my pregnancy with my son, it ended in an emergency C-section because they were worried about all the things.
Mhm.
And I was like, they dilated me up to 10, and then they told me, no, we got to do a C-section. So I was like, okay, let's just do the C-section thing again. That'll help. That'll actually help me mentally with the process of this birth. Right. But even the day of, it's still like, man, I know people that have delivered stillbirths. Something can still go wrong. So it's a very nerve-wracking thing, especially if you've had multiple miscarriages. It's
Mhm.
just 10 months of, okay, is this going to work out this time? Lord be with me if it doesn't.
Mhm.
I don't want I don't want to set up anything or do anything that's going to trigger additional grief. Like, the reason I didn't want to receive anything was because, okay, if this doesn't work out, then I've got to figure out something to do with the stuff that you gave me.
Mhm.
I've got to figure out, I've got to take down a room that I've put together.
Yeah,
And
that's just
that's
more
just,
grief and more trauma.
it is to something
Mhm.
that's already really awful.
Mhm.
So yeah, you're on pins and needles that entire time. The women I've interviewed, they've said the same thing.
Yeah.
Some are not as afraid to try again, but it's pretty scary.
Right. Would you say then, that entire pregnancy, was it on your mind? Was that the forefront of your mind the whole time? Or would you have some moments in time where it's like, oh, I haven't thought of this in a while, and then boom, it just kind of hits you, and then again, you're filled with fear. What was that experience like, trying to balance the happiness and the excitement too?
That's a good question. Every day was not a fearful day. There were happy moments. When I started to show, people got excited, and
Mm.
I joined in on that excitement. But there were also days where your mind travels back to those other miscarriages, and it still feels like yesterday that it happened, and it's like, oh my god, what if this happens again? It's not a daily thing, but it's pretty recurrent throughout the pregnancy
Mm-hmm.
cycle.
Mm-hmm.
So.
What did you find helped you kind of, just talk back to the fear and get back into, okay, no, like this is an exciting thing, and, you know, kind of just talk
Um,
yourself out of that mindset of,
talking to friends,
mhm,
who've known what I'd gone through. My business partner and I were pretty close. He's experienced miscarriage from a father's perspective, and so
mhm, mhm,
he gets the period of waiting, and then not getting what you wanted out of the pregnancy.
mhm,
So leaning into people that have gone through the process um, really helped. And this time I had more of a tribe or a village because I'd gone through that support group
mhm,
process,
mhm,
right? And there was similar feelings amongst those ladies because some of them had gotten pregnant as well. There's one in
mhm.
our group that's had like three additional babies since. So that
Mm,
first one was like, okay, yeah, I'm scared,
yeah.
right?
And it's nice
So
to see, you know, um, ha, you know, uh, births that are successful in the group. So for
right,
missing pieces, that's just, it's this I guess maybe calming or like hopeful, I guess is maybe the word,
yeah,
you
yeah,
know. So
it
there's
was.
in missing pieces, then there's women who are pregnant again, and they're able to be there, and they're able to talk through, okay, this is a support group for women who are now pregnant again, but filled with fear. So there's resources for that as well.
Well, not necessarily that. We do accept women who are now pregnant if they,
Hmm.
want to talk through the pregnancy
Yeah.
losses that they experienced in their support group. But the three board members that I mentioned, we
Hmm.
all went through that support group
Hmm.
process. That's where we met and
Yeah.
connected. And when we stayed in connection post support group, we've gone through the experiences of each of us getting pregnant again,
Hmm.
and seeing it be a success. Now, does the story always end like that? Absolutely not.
Hmm.
Our group of four women is very unique that we were all able to have children again.
Hmm.
But we've encountered women who have had up to 10 miscarriages, and they have just said, no, this is not the way for me. But they've gone the adoption route.
Hmm.
Um, so I think it was encouraging for me to see someone go through it again and be successful. Because there was one lady before me that had another baby. As we were getting pregnant, she was further along and had another baby. But sometimes you're not always exposed to that,
Hmm.
and it can be a little bit more scary because you don't know anybody that has been successful at it again. When in reality, there's tons of women that have gone through this, right?
Right.
And
Right.
and they've tried it again, and they've experienced, they've birthed again, but because nobody's talking about it, you don't know
Hmm.
those women, and
Right.
it's
Right.
really unfortunate that this is a taboo topic, even
Hmm.
in 2023.
Yeah. Um, I agree, and it's super helpful that people are, having support groups, or celebrities talking about it like we were talking about
Mm-hmm.
before.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Now I'm going to ask a couple questions. And again, from somebody who has not experienced this, I want you to tell me if anything is inappropriate, because I want people listening to this podcast to know, hey, don't phrase a question that way, or don't talk about this, or I want this to be very educational for
Oh yeah,
people.
and
So
I will. I'll raise my hand when you say
yeah,
something that's inappropriate.
please.
But this has been spot on so far. Thank you for these
Okay.
thoughtful questions.
My question is, especially if you don't have a support group, or people aren't talking about it, and you, again, feeling very isolated, did you experience this before? I mean, you had found your support group, but when you have experienced miscarriage and multiple miscarriage, if people aren't talking about this, what was your experience like when you saw other people get pregnant? Was it hurtful? Was it
Oh
just
yes, it was a trigger, Meg. It was a trigger. It's like so much to the point that um, I wasn't on social media very often because after
Mhm,
seeing those first couple, it's like, well, damn, they're living what I wanted to live, and
mhm,
I wasn't able to have the child or the baby shower or get to experience the childbirth. So it's tough in the beginning, especially if you
mhm,
haven't processed the feelings from the loss. It's another mindfuck.
mhm. Yeah.
So one of the ways that we try to help with the nonprofit is by sharing our testimonials through a video recording that we upload to YouTube, so that we come up in the search when you're looking for pregnancy loss, miscarriage, stillbirth, so that people can know this isn't unique to me. There is life on the other side of this. I can
Mhm.
get through this. There
Yeah.
are success stories. You can live to try again, and it go right for you.
Mhm, mhm.
So we try to chip away at the taboo topic, a conversation at a time, so that we can normalize this conversation and people don't feel insecure about bringing it up.
Mhm.
So the education about what not to say and how to be there for somebody is truly helpful, because when that person finally gets the chance to, the courage to say what it is that they're feeling, you need an appropriate response. Otherwise, they're going
Yeah.
to go back in their hole.
Well, and also it allows people to create a safe space for
Right.
that person, right? And
Yes.
again, it's not about fixing things. It's not about
Mm-mm.
intrusively asking questions that are assumptions, or, again, maybe just even conversational, right?
Yeah.
But it's let's bring awareness to this, so we can, everybody who's not experiencing that can create a space where people can feel okay being more vulnerable, talking about such a personal experience, and
Mm-hmm.
feel, oh, there's somebody else out there like me, or I can get pregnant again and have a child after a miscarriage, or it's normal to
Absolutely.
feel this way, right? It's normal to, and it's okay to be take myself off social media so I don't see these triggers of other people and their
Right.
happiness and their experience. Like, it's okay, and you don't have to feel guilty for not being happy for somebody, right?
Absolutely. People that I love that you're speaking about the other side of the coin, because people need to know it's okay, and you're not going to be looked at or judged at differently because you can't take in the information in front of you right now. You
Hmm.
still need that time to process and heal. So
Right.
yeah, those feelings are totally normal and totally okay.
Yeah. Well, and I think, for everybody who's not experiencing pregnancy loss, or miscarriage, infant loss, and not just this month, right? And just in general, I think it's
Mhm.
helpful for them to get the perspective of somebody, and maybe they've never gone through that, of giving people grace, right? I think giving people
Yes,
grace is just a huge, huge part of life, in general, and
absolutely.
just relationships. But, it's, giving that person, it's okay if they're not at your baby shower, or it's okay if they unfollowed you or muted you or aren't asking you questions about your pregnancy, right? Because it's not that they don't care, it's just, they're still grieving,
Yeah,
right? And I think if more people understood that, then, I mean, I would hope, again, not having this experience personally, that it would help with the feelings of guilt,
yes,
for not showing up for your friends or whatever the expectation is,
absolutely, absolutely.
Mhm.
If people could get that and realize that, that would truly be helpful for this community, because, as you know, with grief in general, there's no timeline on it.
Yeah.
And it takes however long it takes for that person. So, even a year or 2 years from now, that person might not be okay with going to
Hmm.
her friend's baby shower,
Yeah.
or, being there for the delivery and all the other things that come with having a baby.
Hmm.
It's just where they are with their grief.
Yeah. I'm going to ask another question. And again, this just might be extremely, um, off. And this is not from my experience, but my experience with my friends. I have had multiple friends have
Hmm.
multiple miscarriages, sometimes really late, up to 8 months
Oh,
of
wow.
pregnancy. And it is just, it's terrible to watch.
Hmm.
And I know some of them have expressed to me feelings of, this was my fault and I felt
Yes,
responsible for it. And I would just love to talk about that, because I would hate for anybody to be struggling with that on their own.
absolutely. So when this happens, especially the first time, you feel like something is wrong with your body. You feel like you're broken, and you go down this tunnel of trying to figure out, what did I do wrong? How do I fix this so it doesn't happen again? A lot of people spend a lot of money trying to figure out what went wrong.
Mhm.
Um, and it just makes you feel abnormal. Some of the responses that you get uh, from even the doctors that you go to see, it's like, oh, well, there's something wrong with me now.
Mhm.
When they don't even in reality know if there's truly something wrong with you. A lot of the responses they give are actually common too, like, oh, well, you just need to increase your D3, or you're sterile. Well, not sterile. I can't think of the word, but something that makes it harder to, be reproductive again.
Mhm.
Things
Something
of that nature.
intrinsically is, a little,
Yeah,
not
yeah,
an optimal, you know, I don't know the
yeah.
the
We know what
words,
that.
the
I'm glad
physical.
that you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, it's not
Even
an
though we can't get to
optimal,
the term right now. Yes.
environment. I think that's the word. It's the environment is not. I think one of my friends actually heard that from a doctor. It's the environment that you have inside of you is not
Yeah.
optimal, and it's like, okay, now
Yeah.
you've told me this terrible news,
Hmm.
and now you're telling me that it might be something wrong with me that I can't fix, or
Yeah.
I
And
don't
they
know how to
send you to
fix.
a specialist to get that additional information.
Hmm.
And that's the words that the information they give you. It's very generic, because at the end of the day, they really don't know what's wrong with you.
Hmm.
So, you come back feeling even more broken. And so it's just this feeling of, um like, I might not be good for this. I might not be right for this. Maybe I need to try something else.
Hmm.
And for me, getting the courage to try again, um that third time around, it was just like, okay, now I'm almost 40, so possibilities of this even going right
Right. Yeah.
anymore
Each
or
time you
have
get pregnant, you're
increased.
older.
Yeah,
So
I'm
then,
I'm 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 definitely
yeah.
a geriatric pregnancy
Oh,
at
I
this
didn't.
point,
Yeah,
right?
that's a great
Yeah.
point. It's like, oh, well, now I'm going to be older, and they,
Yeah.
all you hear is about, yeah,
Uh-huh.
geriatric
Yeah.
pregnancies, which is, I think, what, after 35.
After
The-
35. Yeah.
I
They
mean,
start
can
calling
we
you
get another name
geriatric.
for that?
Please.
A different
Please.
name. I don't know who named that, but let's
It's
work on that
awful, isn't
movement.
it?
Get a different name. It's just
Please.
wild. Yeah.
But yeah, so and then I was also dealing with fibroids around that time, and fibroids
Mm,
give you very similar symptoms of being pregnant. And so I'm,
mhm.
running to the bathroom, take a pregnancy test because I feel a certain way, right?
Yeah.
It comes up negative, and the next day I'm getting my period. So that's another mind fuck that you have to deal with. And out of transparency, I
Yeah.
was to the point where I had given up on pregnancy. I talked to God and I said, hey, okay, Lord, I get it. It's not meant for me. I'm going to be okay with it. It's well with my soul because I was tired of trying and not getting to the point of what I want. And one day my husband just looked at me and he was like, you're pregnant. It's like, what? What are you talking about? And he said it several times. And I started thinking more about it. And I just decided to take another pregnancy test. And I was pregnant. It was the weirdest thing. I was like, okay. Just when I had given up,
Yeah. Yeah. It's like
I'm almost
God's
40.
timing, right? It's always perfect timing.
Yes, it really was. And it really was.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Lacey Olivia is one of the
Mhm.
loves of my life. I can't
Mhm.
imagine life without her. But she came when I did not expect her to even
Yeah.
be here anymore because I had just given up.
Yeah. Mm. Mhm. What was that feeling like? Because I think that is something that a lot of people listening to this podcast um, could relate to is the feeling of giving up.
Mm-hmm.
What is the? I mean, I just imagine. I'm not familiar with pregnancy loss, but I'm familiar with just grief and grieving
Mm-hmm.
a life that you thought was going to happen, and you thought your whole
Mm-hmm.
family and your life was going to roll out this way, and you have this. You're grieving a life that you wanted. It's not just
Yeah.
the 6 weeks that you were pregnant. It's the whole life is just like
Right.
a carpet,
Yeah.
and then you're just discombobulated. So what does that giving up, what does that grief feel like?
It wasn't as awful as you might have thought. Like, once you've tried and tried and tried and just haven't gotten what you wanted, um, it's more of a it was more of a burden off my shoulders. It's probably why I was able to get pregnant because I wasn't thinking about it as much, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so, I let go of the desire. Now I did struggle with, okay, well, because I don't like to give up on things. I'm not a quitter, right? Um, but I just came to a point where I couldn't do this and be present for my family, be present for, my other businesses in the way that I needed to be because it's like tunnel vision. When you're trying to do something that you really, really want, and you just keep ending up with um, the unwanted results.
Yeah.
So, um, so yeah, I struggled a little bit with giving up, but then once I just let it go, it was like a weight off my shoulders.
Mhm. Mm.
Yeah.
Wow. Whew. Yeah, that's a lot to, I mean, that whole journey. I mean, and this is, going back to missing pieces, everything
Mm-hmm.
that we've talked about so far. It's like to do all of that and go through all of these emotions
Mm-hmm.
on your own.
Yeah,
It's
that
just,
is it's tough, and it's where nobody should be again because this is so common. And
mhm.
we need to normalize the conversation so that people are unafraid to go get the help they need. Like
Yeah,
it's okay to feel sad about this and all the emotions that come with it. But I've learned that talking about it is the most therapeutic thing that you can do
mhm.
for yourself with this
Yeah.
type of loss, and to
Okay.
be around other people that have gone through it or
Right.
hearing other stories about it. It gives you the strength and the courage to step out on faith and tell your story
Right.
because when I started to be more active in talking about it and sharing my story, it was more from the perspective of I'm helping the next lady down the line that goes through this so that they don't feel alone and confused and isolated as I did, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's going to continue to happen. Miscarriage, pregnancy loss is a part of pregnancy.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that we're not talking about it makes it seem like it's just so unnatural and abnormal,
Yeah.
that people don't feel okay with saying, I've
Mm-hmm.
gone through that.
Right.
But what's
And
even more crazy is that, when you finally do begin to open up, other people start saying, oh, I had one. Oh, I had one. It's like,
yeah.
oh, okay. Well,
Yeah.
where were you?
Right,
Where were
right.
you? If I
When I
had
was
known
going
this
through it, yeah.
before, I would have easily just come to you and said, hey, I've gone through this. What did you do to get through it? Right?
Yes, right. And that's the thing about, Brene Brown talks about this. It's this the shame can exist in the light, right? And
Uh-huh.
this and I'm not to say that anybody should feel shame or guilt or that it is their fault or responsible, but these are the emotions that people are feeling.
Yes.
And so if you isolate something, right, if you hide it from the world because of the rest of us not creating a safe space for you to, come
Talk about
about,
it. Mm-hmm.
then you are going to go through trauma and grief, but now you're doing it by yourself. And because you
Right.
feel like, oh, I don't have a safe space to talk about this, I have to hide it, right? Not because you don't want to share it, just because you don't feel safe sharing. I have to hide it. And if I feel like I have to hide it, then that's where shame can cultivate and really
Yes.
just grow and grow and grow. And now your mind kind of just starts to spiral. And like you were talking about, a mind fuck of now
Mm-hmm.
I'm really in on this and I have nobody to talk me out of this.
Right.
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 So
I'm
even
spiraling.
by
There's nobody to get me back up
no,
on solid
no.
ground.
And I want to say this message to everybody who is on the listening end, because I do agree we have to start the conversation, right? And take the taboo out of pregnancy loss and miscarriage. But everybody who has not experienced that, it is not our job to start the conversation.
Right.
So
Right.
I do want to say that we are showing up as the listening ear.
Yes.
And we are just holding space for somebody without trying to fix anything.
Yes.
And just realize that every time you're trying to fix something, that it can come across as you are basically making my problem seem less, because
Absolutely.
and it's you're not validating my experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when we say start the conversation, we create the safe space for anybody who has gone through it or who is currently going through it, to let them bring it up,
Right.
and then go from there.
If they
So
can trust you to be that safe
mhm,
space and to just be there, then
mhm,
yes, be there and listen. And that's more than enough.
yeah,
Because they don't expect you to understand this. You haven't gone through it. But
mhm,
they do want you to treat them like a human being that has gone
mhm,
through something that's truly traumatic,
right,
and they just need somebody to be there for them.
right, and just listen, right?
Mm-hmm.
Empathy is not devaluing somebody else's experience. It's really just I'm sitting here and listening, and I'm gonna stay down here with you, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm just going to hold your hand, or just sit on the couch with you while you watch TV,
Yeah.
or
Or
whatever
send
it
you
is.
your favorite meal through Grubhub, or
Yeah,
send
or
a care
understand
package.
that you're not coming to my baby shower and I'm not going
Yeah.
to hold that against you, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Without them having to
so,
explain.
right, without you having to explain or feel more guilty about, now I feel guilty about not showing up for my friend and all that.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, uh, so, going back to missing pieces, sharing this podcast episode, sharing what missing pieces support group is, like, these are things that you can do for people. Like, hey, I don't know about this experience. I'm going to sit here. I'm going to hold space for you. I'm not going to pry, and I'm not going to try to make you feel better, right?
Yeah.
But what I can do is, hey, here's this group, and they
Yes.
talk about this openly. Here's a resource. Now you serve Houston directly, but you also ship care packages nationwide.
That's correct. And
So
we are also looking into opening more chapters in
mhm,
Texas. Um,
mhm,
our ultimate goal is to be, all over the U.S. But if
Yeah.
somebody sends us a care package request from Maryland, and we've gotten several of those lately. I'm not sure what's happening there, but yeah, we're gonna ship it to you
Yeah.
because you asked for it, and we think these are resources that are going to be helpful to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the more people talk about it, and the more common of a need that we recognize that it to be, the more awareness can create more opportunities for growth. So you can serve
Absolutely.
Texas more. You can serve the whole United States more. So it just starts with breaking down that taboo. And of course, if you don't go onto your website and know somebody who wants a care package, you can also donate financially to help you grow as well.
Absolutely. And or even send them a care package.
So many ways to help people.
Yes.
And so if this has touched your heart, we'll make sure that we link everything in the show notes, so you can find all their social media pages on where to direct anybody who might be going through this experience, but then also give you a chance to give back and help out this amazing cause. So all that will be in the show notes. And thank you so much, Jamilah, for being on this show and for doing what you do, because again, 1 in 4. Yeah. That's mind-boggling.
Right. So, thank you for the invite and the opportunity to share. I truly appreciate it.
Yes, of course. So, well, with that, we'll wrap up for today. But please visit the website. Go on, donate if this speaks to your heart, and hopefully apply all of the tips and just the knowledge and the education and just the shared experience. Just absorb that wherever you are, and let's just start to create more awareness and, again, a safe space for this terrible loss. So but well, thank you again, and we will be talking soon.
My pleasure. Thanks, Meg.